fun, beautiful cities to live in America, whether Seattle, San Francisco, LA, I think is beautiful in many ways. New York, Boston, these are all very, very blue cities.
Mm-hmm.
And the kind of cities that you think of as being more on the red end of the spectrum, whether it's Dallas or, I don't know what the big cities would be, the big red cities. But they're not places that I would run to live in. And that is a little bit of a mystery. I don't have a ready solution to the mystery, but it could be that all the places that I just mentioned, those blue cities, are fairly recent in their transition to secularism. So the analogy I always give is if someone goes off his medications, for the first 8 hours or the first 24 hours or whatever it is, he may feel fine, he may feel great. And he might say, well, I never needed that medication, Look at me, I'm doing just great. It was all a crock. But after a certain amount of time has gone by, he's going to find out that's not true. And so places like Seattle that were much more traditional even 30 years ago could reach that point where they realize, well, it was a big mistake to go off my meds. So, but for now, it's a lovely place to live in some ways.
But you couldn't really name anything in the culture. I specifically say culture, not the scenery. Well, what do you love about Seattle's culture? The way that the Seattle community has formed a specific way of
Jewish community, or
the wider community, the wider Seattle.
I don't know. I like the people that I work with. I don't.
Do you like Seattle, aside from the physical considerations? Yeah, the scenery.
It's culture. I don't find anything particularly. There's a certain sort of genteel quality to the better aspects of Seattle's culture. The fact that Nordstrom, could only have started in Seattle, with their whole emphasis on customer service, and the customer's always right, and you bring something back years later, and that genteel quality does represent, I think, Seattle at its best. And but I didn't move here. I moved here initially because I liked the Jewish community, the small Jewish community that I still live in. That was my initial reason for moving here. And later, I became associated with the Discovery Institute, where there are a lot of people who think in similar ways that I do about sort of philosophical questions, and it's a lovely intellectual community. But I didn't move here for the Seattle culture in any way. So I was struggling for it.
Right.
It's not like when you go to New York, you feel buzz, you feel energy, excitement, for whether for good or bad. Seattle isn't like that, and LA is like that. When you go to LA, just flying over this huge, expansive grid of the city, it's exciting. It sort of fuels you. You get a rush of energy and excitement from LA. Seattle is like that, but it's not so built up. It's very close to forests and beautiful scenery, and the sort of wilderness beaches are beautiful, and but some sort of spirit of Seattle is not much of here.
Mm-hmm. Have you watched any TV series in the last few years?
Not regularly.
Did you ever watch Sex and the City?
I've seen it once or twice, yeah. Why?
I was just curious if you had any reaction to it.
No, nothing that would be of interest.
The Sopranos?
I've never seen The Sopranos.
What do you love about American popular culture?
I'm not pausing because I don't love anything. I'm pausing because I'm just trying to find what I would say. What do I love about America?
American popular culture.
Well, I used to love American movies, and I haven't seen a good movie in a long time. I used to not be able to understand why anyone would go see a foreign movie when waste their time seeing a foreign movie when you can see an American movie. But I actually haven't the past 6 months I haven't seen much of the way movies.
Which are your favorite movies of all time?
The Last Emperor, Ferris Bueller's Day Off. What have I seen more than once? I used to love the Star Wars movies. Lord of the Rings. I don't have particularly interest in taste of movies.
What do you think about and how do you feel about rock music?
I listen to it all the time on the radio. I think it's great for driving, but I never listen to it at home.
What are your favorite groups?
I don't pay attention to the groups. I just turn on the radio and I flip around to try to avoid commercials and
You don't have any favorite rock groups? You can say...
I don't really. I don't really think about it. And if you asked me, if you mentioned the name of a song to me, it's almost certain that I wouldn't recognize it, the name of the song. But if you played it for me, I probably would recognize it.
Right. What did you think of the movie Borat?
I thought it was mean, and I thought it was funny but mean. And it made you feel, I went out feeling like, about the first half I thought it was hilarious and great. In the second half I felt increasingly guilty at enjoying it because it made fun of people who were trying to be helpful, and in other words, it was cruel to people who weren't big enough or bad enough, really, to merit that kind of cruelty at all. And it seemed really, in the end, although I laughed throughout it, it seemed in the end to me an ugly movie.
Would you agree to be interviewed by Borat?
No.
Why not?
Because why on earth would he? Everyone knows by now. I'd imagine this is the end of his shtick. That everyone now knows that if Borat wants to interview you, it's to make a fool of you. So why on earth would anyone, unless he's had his head in the sand for the past couple of years, agree to be interviewed by what's the guy's real name?
Sacha Baron Cohen.
Why on earth would anyone agree to be interviewed by him?
What's the dumbest thing you've published in the last decade?
I'm sure there's something I'm trying to find.
Okay, that's fine. Which part of life do you find most perplexing?
Probably how to be a good